Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. I do appreciate you being with me so very, very much. Hope you've had a fantastic week. All right, we are looking at the Lord's coming as a thief, Matthew 24:43. We are told that his coming as a thief would be without any kind of signs whatsoever. Nobody could know anything about it. There would be no signs. And yet, what I've shared with you so far proves that the Lord's coming as a thief would not be as a thief on the believers. And I'm going to drive that home even more, okay? So be looking for that. His statement that he was coming as a thief meant that he was coming as a thief on those who were unaware, those who were not watching, those who were not prepared. Not on Christians who Paul said in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 knew the times and the seasons. Now, I suggested to you yesterday, and this is such an incredibly powerful subject, okay? Jesus taught his apostles after his resurrection for 40 days concerning the kingdom. As that 40 days draws to its close, he was assembled with them, and he emphatically told those 12 apostles, do not leave Jerusalem, because you are going to be baptized with the Holy Spirit in just a few days. Now look, I've got to reiterate this because it's so incredibly important. We are told constantly that time doesn't mean a thing in the world with God. Well, here's the resurrected Lord telling his apostles that in just a few days, my goodness gracious, what does just a few days mean? I mean, what could that possibly mean if God doesn't know time? And if Jesus was so ignorant about time, how could he say, don't leave Jerusalem, you're going to be baptized in the Holy Spirit in just a few days? It is utterly ridiculous for people to say, oh, well, sure, Jesus meant just a few days here, but when he said his coming was going to be in that generation, that didn't mean anything. What kind of inconsistency is this? And where's the justification for that? Okay, so, as I have mentioned to you, there was a belief, a long-standing, well-established doctrine among Judaism in the first century that said that the Holy Spirit, the prophetic office, had departed from Israel with the writing of Malachi. And that's one of the reasons why Malachi looked forward to the coming of Elijah, the restoration of the prophetic office. Behold, I send Elijah, my servant, before my face. He shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the sons, the hearts of the daughters to the mothers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. And he called on Israel, keep the law of Moses, my servant, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. So with the writing of Malachi, Israel looked forward to the coming of Elijah, a prophet, and you have this 400 plus years gap in which there was no true prophet. No prophet like Malachi. No prophet like Isaiah. No prophet like Jeremiah. Now, there were some who called John Hyrcanus, a prophet, but not in the true sense of the word, truest sense of the word. And so with the writing of Malachi, you have that 4-century gap of time of Israel waiting for the outpouring of the Holy Spirit, waiting for the last days, the appearance of Elijah as the prophet of God, the last days prophet of God. Well, John the Baptizer, John the Immerser, was Elijah. Matthew chapter 17, 10 to 12. He was full of the Holy Spirit from his mother's womb, Matthew tells us. That means that the last days were present with John the Baptizer. And then Joel foretold the outpouring of the Holy Spirit in the last days before the coming of the great and the terrible day of the Lord. Joel 2:28 and following. And on the day of Pentecost, what happened? Well, you know what happened. But you see, when Jesus made the promise to his apostles of the imminent, in just a few days, outpouring of the Holy Spirit, baptism of the Holy Spirit, the apostles asked, will you at this time restore the kingdom to Israel? And Jesus said, it's not for you to know the times of the seasons which the Lord has put in under his own authority. Now look, they are looking for the establishment of the kingdom. But the kingdom was to come in power and great glory at the time of judgment. And the resurrection, by the way. 2 Timothy chapter 4, 1 and 2. The apostles were anticipating the eschatological consummation, but Jesus said, guys, it's not for you to know the times and the seasons, but go into Jerusalem, where I've told you not to leave from. I've told you not to leave Jerusalem when I tell you to go there, because in just a few days, you're going to receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit. You're going to be endued with power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you. And you're going to be my witnesses. Now, next Monday, I'm going to show you that Acts chapter 1, when in verse 8, when Jesus says, you're going to be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, and to the Samaria, and to the uttermost parts of the world, he was predicting the last day's sign of the coming of the Lord, just like Matthew 24, verse 14 foretold. Meaning that this outpouring of the Holy Spirit that was coming, meaning that their mission to the world and the preaching of the gospel into all of the world was related to this issue of the times and the seasons. Now look, Jesus said, it's not for you to know the times and the seasons, but you are. Pardon me. You are going to be endued with power from the Holy Spirit. Well, what did the being endued with the power from the Holy Spirit mean? It meant the last days. It meant the day of the Lord was going to be near, because the outpouring of the Holy Spirit was to be a sign of the coming of the Lord. So, next Monday, I'm going to be sharing some thoughts with you from Isaiah 43. Because in Acts 1 and 8, Jesus is citing verbatim from Isaiah 43 and verse 10, which was a prediction of the coming of the new creation. Well, okay, very quickly, what is the coming of the new creation? It comes at the coming of the Lord. So when Jesus told his apostles they were about to be endued with power from on high, they would be his witness to the nations, that meant that when their mission was fulfilled, the coming of the Lord as a thief in the night would be near. Hey, listen, I need your suggestions. I've got a couple of ideas in mind for my Friday sessions for me to, review books or to respond to videos or what have you. So, between now and next Friday, send me your suggestions. I've sort of been thinking about a review of Mr. Paul Ellis's book, which is a well-written book in many ways, and yet he denies that AD 70 was the coming of the Lord. And I had actually been recommended to that book a good little while back, and of course I've done other things more in depth since then. So if you'd like for me to do a review of Mr. Paul Ellis's book on AD 70, or if there's something else that you think is more pressing, more important, let me hear from you, okay? Go to my website, donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com. Send me an email or, comment on today's video and let me know your suggestion for my Friday video of review and refutation, all right? Thanks for joining me for this morning's Morning Musings. I do appreciate it. Have a great weekend.